is. So a couple great things that we did since I took office. We've lowered the tax rate to its lowest level in 18 years. In Putnam County, we use something called a mill rate. So it's basically, it's just the county government tax portion of your property taxes. But it's your tax burden per $1,000 of assessed value on your property. We have the lowest rate in 18 years right now. It was $3.12 per $1,000 of assessed value, so 3.12 when I took office. We've driven that down to $2.70. So that's 2.7 per $1,000 of assessed value. We've also cut taxes in the budget, the county budget, for the first time in 25 years, which was big. We cut the tax levy by about $500,000 in 1 year. We've also made sales tax less regressive and fairer, but in a way that was targeted and financially sustainable for the county. Sales tax is our largest revenue source by far. So we rely on property taxes, sales tax, and the other big portion is state and federal aid. But sales tax is largely seen as a fairer mechanism to raise revenue because people have independent control over what you want to buy. If you're someone with a lot of means and you want to buy a Lamborghini, God bless you, go ahead. You're going to pay a heck of a lot more in sales tax. If you want to buy a Hyundai, it's a less costly item, it's probably going to cost less. But the problem with sales tax, or the challenge, is sales tax is a regressive tax, meaning that it affects people on the lower income sales disproportionately more. And those purchases that are seen as regressive are the things that we need to live in society. So food, clothes, things like that. So one of the things we did to actually cut sales tax in a targeted way was opt into an exemption that zeroed out sales tax for clothing and footwear under $110. So if you're a billionaire, you can go on Amazon and buy a pair of socks and you don't pay sales tax. But if you're on food stamps or you're really in trouble and guess what? You're not going to pay sales tax either. It probably costs us about a loss of $2 to $3 million in lost revenue. But to me, as we're dealing with sky-high inflation and just high costs of goods and services, that is a more meaningful way to provide relief. It may seem small to people on a lower scale, but for folks that it really does affect, it does make a difference. You think about a single parent who has to buy clothes for a young child, that makes a difference. And it's compounded because our county sales tax rate is 4% on the purchase of your sale. But because we opt in, the state zeroes it out, and the MTA zeroes it out, so you don't pay anything. It's completely, it's not some gimmick to say, oh, we're going to be pro-business, raise revenue, and more goods. It's just purely a philosophical approach to give relief to people who live in Putnam County. So we've done all those good things. We've invested more in public health, safety. We've bolstered our mental health services. We've endeavored to embark on new creative partnerships in this side of the county, where I think we've done a very good job working and reforging partnerships with your elected leadership at the town and village levels of Nelsonville, Cold Spring, and town of Phillipstown. When it comes to sales tax, one of the things we did do this year, I opposed the county legislature's effort. They were split almost down the middle. Half of them wanted to cut the sales tax rate. Now that doesn't give you targeted relief. That is a very broad cut to our largest revenue stream. And then it forces us to rely on more property taxes. So when they tried to do that, they had the bare minimum votes, 5 votes. I partnered with our town and village leaders. Every town supervisor, every village mayor, every highway superintendent came to the table with me, with our state senators, our state assembly people, and we sat down. I said, look, we've all talked about revenue sharing, sales tax sharing. I'm open to this concept if it includes extending the existing sales tax rate that will enable us to continue our exemption and leverage the revenue to give property tax relief. So we all got together, we came up with this model where there was 9 municipal leaders, so 1/9 of that 1% will be shared with towns and villages for them to support specific items, because I did not want it to be a blank check that would just grow government, but that it would go to an effective use. So it's to be used for infrastructure, it can be used for engineering designs, to better leverage sales tax and get property tax relief. That means Nelsonville, Phillipstown, rather than having to dip into your property taxpayers to fill potholes. I know paving might be, is paving still a dirty word over here? I'm not going to go there. But say you got to fix a culvert, right? You drive over culverts all the time. People don't even realize it. It's expensive stuff. We don't get enough funding from the state. We do get some to help with our roads, but it's expensive. And sometimes just the design costs are cost prohibitive. So now they'll be able to do that with a portion of sales tax revenue rather than property taxes. So that's a lot of the big changes on property tax and just tax policy in general. But we've been able to embark on a new proposal recently on an early learning center. It's over in Patterson, but the idea is, this is a new initiative that we're rolling out in September. I'm just going to ask, because most people don't even know this. How many people know what early intervention or the Committee on Preschool Special Education is? That's awesome. Okay, most people don't unless you're in that space, right? It's a really big deal. It is a mandated function of county government that county government provides services to our special needs pre-K population in the county. Most people, I think rightfully, when they think about education, they think about our school districts, right? Or they think about the state regulatory environment, state education department, state board of regents, oversees our schools. The county provides services to those pre-K special needs population. And which has been a challenge for Putnam County for a long time is the CPSE population, 3 and 4 years old. We largely have contracted out to agencies, but because we don't have a lot of providers in the county, they're outside of the county. So the county has transported a lot of these children to places down like in Ossining, Westchester, Dutchess. And so we have some children that are 3 or 4 years old that are special needs sitting on a bus for over an hour. So first of all, that creates an awful educational experience for the child. It also costs us a lot of money on transportation. So what changed was with the advent of universal pre-K at the state level and school districts opting in, all seeking new providers, it gave us this opportunity to leverage what's referred to as a graded model by centralizing a service in Putnam County, partnering with our school districts. We're going to be able to offer those special education services for the pre-K population in Putnam County, which provides a better educational experience, cuts transportation times, and saves taxpayer money. So that's a really big deal. It was a pretty long fight with the legislature to get us through to finalize a lease agreement with a partner called Community-Based Services. They were based out of Dutchess County, but they have an inter-arts campus in Patterson. And they're very much mission aligned with this because their focus is to help people of every ability. Something that I talked about a lot that Mark Molinaro did in Dutchess County is think differently. It's not about the children to think differently or have everyone labeled differently. It's about society to think differently, to make ourselves more open-minded about making our facilities more accessible to people of every physical and intellectual developmental disability. So I think this is very mission aligned with CVS. They're excited. We're going to open it up in September this year with the ability to finish their new space by the new year. And if it's successful, we hope to expand it out elsewhere too. So we do have some providers already like Green Chimneys in Putnam County, but this is a big, important start. I think when we have the proof of concept and we can see this being effectively used in Putnam County, it's something that other counties that are similarly sized can model after and emulate across the state. So, and it's an idea and an example of not the federal government wagging a finger and saying, no, you need to do this, or the state saying, you need to do this. This is local elected leaders working together, being creative with their school districts to create a better service and save money. So I think that's like some of the examples that need to be highlighted. We're still working on a stabilization center over in Carmel to help people with mental health crisis. We have a grand opening of our brand new state-of-the-art fire and EMS training facility over in Kent. You have local fire and EMS agencies in every town. The county is not mandated to provide some of these services, but we very much take on this obligation. We provide paramedic services countywide through Advanced Life Support Services. The BLS, the Basic Life Support Service, is provided at the local level, but the training, a lot of it's provided by the county. So we have that in Carmel at our Emergency Services Center, but the new fire and EMS training facility named after Lieutenant Michael Nooner, who lost his life in the line of duty, so Brewster volunteer firefighter. We're going to have a grand opening on Thursday. I'm very excited about it. It's this new Draeger system, and we've had different agencies from Connecticut and Pennsylvania actually try to get our workings on it. So, because they're interested in emulating it too. So that's like plagiarism is the best form of flattery, right? So if they like what we're doing here in Putnam County, it means we're doing something right. But I told you I talked too long and I wanted to answer questions. Hopefully if someone has a question about my tablet, when we talk about budget, we have a budget transparency website. 2 things that I do that no other executive did, several things, and then I'll open up the questions. We live stream all of our public hearings. The legislature did not do that. I very much pushed them to. Your legislator pushed them to. They are now live streaming their meetings. When I took office, some of them were upset that I said this, but it was true. I had more access to county legislator meetings during the pandemic than I did in January 1st, 2023 when I took office. Because during the pandemic, the state mandated that you live stream your meetings, but it was audio only. But I could at least listen in real time. The first week of meetings when I took office in 2023, it was still audio only, but it wasn't live streamed. So the legislature now on its own initiative, but after a lot of public pressure, have it in audio and visual format with committee and full legislative meetings, and are now all being live streamed. So you can go on YouTube and watch them. But they weren't live streamed during public hearings. So part of my way of trying to encourage them was, before they started live streaming, I just started to live stream my own public hearings. So we live stream our own. Before I sign a law, I have to host a public hearing. We live stream our public hearings. I post all of my financial disclosure forms that I am required by law to file with the County Board of Ethics. I put it on the county website, so you can all look at it. If I owe some bookie several $100,000 and you think it's gonna like bias my opinion or decision or subject me to some sort of corruption, you can call me out on it. You should be able to see it. And the reason why I don't think it's that bold of a move, most county executives don't do this. No other elected official in the county does this. But I did it, I was required by law in the state assembly every year that when I filed my financial disclosure form, they posted it on the state website. So to me, it's like it's nothing new. So I do that. We have the budget transparency website online as well that you can look at. And every annual report from all of our departments that are delivered to the legislature with the state of the county that gives all of basically the ROI, return on your investment. So taxpayers are putting in money to support these departments to do good work, right? This is where you can see all of that ROI. And you can see all the good work. It used to be this massive binder, and there was no form or system to it. Everyone just put like whatever they wanted. We created a standardized document that was more easily digestible. The department heads, to be fair, in the beginning there was some resistance, but they quickly embraced it because I think they realized it was an easier way to present their work to the public. We don't just give it to the legislature. I put it online so everyone can see it. So I don't care if you're a candidate running for office or just a nosy person that just wants to know where your money's going, you should be able to see that information. So all that's online. I believe Sunshine is the best disinfectant. You got the little tagline down there, open books, open government. That's what this is about. So, but with that, I've talked long enough. I'll open up the questions. Sure. The only thing I ask, it's a small group, if you just say your name and where you're from, it's very helpful. I don't need anything.
Okay, my name is Valerie Cortolano. I'm Phillipstown, but I live in Continental Village.
Okay.
My question, and also you do post on Facebook every day, so we can see how busy you are at different places and open. So that's not my question, but so it's nice to see you at different things, marching or something. I don't know what you're saying. But my question, you were putting about the work you were doing on NICEC. Is there anything about Central Hudson? And it's very good, so not to take anything away from that. many of us have Central Hudson also to live, so I was just sort of curious if there was anything with that. I mean, on a good note, Central Hudson does give a disabled veterans discount as well, because my husband gets that, which they review every year, which is a very nice thing. But I was wondering if there was anything else going with Central Hudson.
My position is almost identically the same. I don't know if they have a pending rate case now that's similar. So when they have a rate, I did this a lot in the assembly too. So somebody like, why are you chiming in on a public service commission, a state entity as the county executive? It's because just because my title changed doesn't stop me from being an advocate.
Yeah.
So I did this all the time in the assembly, where as a state legislator, I would be there at public hearings asking questions of utilities. So I did that as a member of Ways and Means, particularly when it was budget time and they were looking for money. But as a county executive, I still feel like I have an obligation to be an advocate for the people of the county. The county legislature can pass a resolution and we can do even more. But at a minimum, also as a resident, any person who calls Putnam County home when there's a pending rate case can submit in writing public comment and raise your objections, so the Public Service Commission can take all that information into account before they award or deny a rate case.
Where would somebody go for that?
So it's usually it's the Public Service Commission's website. We can get you a specific.
No, I'm really good.
Yeah.
I was just saying in general. Because it's helpful if people know where to look. I mean, when I've actually had questions and I've submitted them to you, your chief of staff has gotten back to me, I think almost as quickly as I push submit. So, I mean, that's how there. So it helps if people know where to look for.
Sure. So what I've done is, and I think this with NICEC, NICEC does serve most of the county, right? Central Hudson, I know is much more here on Phillipstown, but they also provide gas. Oh yes, well the whole town, including Coldstream, the other hamlets. But they also provide natural gas services to other parts of the county too. So their footprint is actually larger as natural gas is more used by homeowners. But when there's a pending rate case, it's something that my position's been the same, and I've tried to push back, particularly when they're outrageous. Asking for like a 34% increase in rates is just utterly offensive. But I also want to be straight with ratepayers, our residents. All too often, you just have politicians who will point and wag the finger at the mean, angry utility company as a monopoly, and they won't be open and honest with you about why the cost of energy is growing. The utilities are responsible for delivering the power to you, right? So there's vegetation management that goes into your bills as a ratepayer, tree trimming, things of that nature. It goes into upgrades, hardening infrastructure, all these different things. Many of it's important. But what they don't have control over is the price of the energy that comes off the grid, right? That's regulated predominantly by NISO, New York Independent System Operator. I think that's correct. It's another mouthful acronym. And the price of energy has been going up. We have some of the highest cost of energy in the state. Some of it's hidden taxes within the price of energy. Some of it's because we don't, this is partially my opinion, we don't leverage other opportunities to harness baseload power and energy, and we limit ourselves. We shut down Indian Point, and now we're relying more on natural gas. We're also relying more on peaker plants down in Long Island and energy from outside of the state, in some cases outside of the country, like Canada.
Central Hudson comes from Canada.
Yes, Canada. So Canada. So price of energy is that is a big piece. So I tried to say that if you read my comment on NICEC,
I did. I read it.
Okay, so I highlight that not to give an excuse for Central Hudson. They're separate issues, but I feel like when we're talking about it, it always gets grouped in. And it's kind of important if we're going to talk about the cost of energy as ratepayers for us to be informed about the total cost. Sometimes the state passes legislation that puts very noble goals, but with no legitimate path to get to them to reduce carbon emissions. Well, right now, closing Indian Point increased carbon emissions because,
supply and demand.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other challenges there. So, but yeah, for Central Hudson, I'm happy to, if there's
you didn't answer, but you actually did answer everything because you incorporated it and explained the different, reasons of things like that and in relation to NICEC and everything else. So I do feel like you answered my question, which is really great. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm happy to do it. And just like I said, transparency in county government, for utilities and the Public Service Commission, I've always advocated for in-person public comment, particularly when you have a large rate case pending. All too often, you're very just quick to say, no, just submit it in writing. That's a bunch of BS, in my opinion. Like, you gotta go to the ratepayers who are being harmed and let them speak. Part of it is about listening to them. And I'm not gonna be so naive to think that the Public Service Commission is gonna flatly deny their rate case. That's what I'm asking them to do. I believe they should. But if there's enough public pressure, I think the number is gonna change. I think it's gonna be decreased significantly. Yes, so, but if you do nothing, then don't expect anything to change.
But it's helpful to know why it's being, and that's the most important thing, is why it's being increased, where it's going to. Is it being increased because gas is higher, because of something with delivery charges or tariffs or something like that? That's why I've said, so that's, I think, full disclosure, and that's why it's
good to know those things.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And look, sometimes the cost goes up too, and I had to talk to some folks about this. I don't regulate the energy industry.
I didn't realize
but in January, we had a cold snap, and we had people all over the county, utility rates went through the roof. And I had people that were like snowbirds in Florida, like, why am I spending all this money? I'm like, well, do you have electric? Yeah. Like, but I wasn't using it. I'm like, but you don't want the pipes to freeze, so you kept your heat on. So I'm like, well, when there's a cold snap, they're using energy to keep the, I'm like, I understand you're upset you weren't in there, but like, someone's got to pay for that energy. So there's always other, getting
what
resources.
we're going to have right now is
air conditioning now.
Air conditioning, right? Because the air conditioning now.
Yes.
And that's the other thing, is when there are the things, a lot of people get on economy plans and don't realize until 12 months after that all of a sudden they're going to owe $2,000 because of their monthly payment was only $150 a month, and not realizing that at the end you can do. So I mean, it's important that people monitor too where it's going and things like this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, I also have to be mindful of this too, not just as an advocate for a community, but also as the CEO of county government. I have 700 employees. I have dozens of county facilities. We are a climate smart community as a county. We got that designation from New York State DEC. So where it makes sense, we try to harness solar. We have it in our county office buildings. And a lot of the resiliency check marks that we get with the DEC, you'd be surprised. When I was looking at it, when I became county executive, I thought a lot of it was all about renewables. It's not. Like, we get check marks for having generators. Why would you get they're fossil fuels, generators for it? Well, part of the resiliency is
also get a tax deduction when you put it in on your federal taxes.
We get it because if there's the thought that if climate change is attributing to some of these more significant 100-year storms, having a hardened infrastructure and resiliency to weather that is part of the factors they look at. So very interesting stuff. So we did get that designation. A lot of work went into that, and some of that work started before I took office. But there was no task force to actually apply, so we created a new task force. We really rejuvenated it. So that's but I have to think about it as, I need air conditioning for my staff, and I got to pay the bills just like everybody else. Our county budget needs to pay utility. When utility bills go up to the roof, I got to be mindful of, well, if I'm going to pay for that, what am I going to do? Am I going to dip more into property taxes to make up the difference, and then squeeze the ratepayers even more? So, one of the biggest challenges I had taking office was union negotiations. I took office. I have 4 collective bargaining units. The PBA for our sheriff's deputies, PCSEA for our corrections officers, the CSEA is our largest public union, and PUMA, which is the Putnam Union Management Association. It's basically it's like mid-level management. So it's 4. PBA had no contract. They declined my predecessor's 1-year rollover. Everyone else was operating under a short-term 1-year rollover. Now I'm walking in here to negotiate with these collective bargaining units. They are rightfully looking for more because they have all these higher costs of living because of inflation. But I had the tough job of saying, well, yes, I want to do right by you and do something that's fair, but I also have to be mindful about the people that are crushing inflation at home. And I can't just go to them and jack up property taxes at the same time. So we have to come up with a fair agreement for both sides. So we did do that. It took a little longer than I would have liked, just under 2 years, or about 2 years for CSCA. But a lot of folks didn't think we get it done. We got it done in our first term. They all now have, every union now has multi-year agreements with the county, which is important for their confidence, for their job security, for them to plan for their kids' college and their future. So very excited about that. That's not a big issue. And inflation, though, made that a lot more challenging, right? Because you got to look at the balance. I'm talking too much. So, other questions? Yes, sir.
I think you're doing too good a job. And we're going to lose you because you're going for something else. But meanwhile, I like the library here. I especially like the Innovation Center, learning about computers or whatever. I think the guy needs a raise. But also, you're doing a good job. But I just realized Putnam County does not have a community college. Why?
It's not. Well, we are mandated to provide some of the financial support for those that go to community college, regardless. So our county budget does provide some of the support for that. It's one of the parts of our budget. We are small. I know my predecessor talked about bringing in a college. At one point, she had Mount St. Mary's come in for some sort of pilot program. It didn't last. I would love to have a community college. I think would be a tremendous cost, quite frankly, for a county this size within our budget. I think it makes more sense for us to continue to strengthen our partnerships with Dutchess Community College and West Street Community College. And if there's opportunities at a satellite campus, I think that's something that we should pursue. I have strong relationships at Marist College, where I got my graduate degree from. That's not a community college, but anytime that we can bring in higher learning as an opportunity in Putnam, I think we should try to do that. But setting up a whole new campus facility, I think there would be probably a cost that we couldn't sustain. And I don't know what the overall utilization would be. We do have one of the fastest and largest aging populations of any county in the state. We're well over the statewide average. But we do partner with regionally on education. A couple of big examples is BOCES. So it's not higher education, but BOCES.
Trade schools, you really need.
Yes. Yeah, no, so trade, obviously supporting folks to have opportunities on where they want to have, what their vocation is going to be, whether it's trades or higher education. But BOCES has a culinary program underneath Philly Foster Fund, the restaurant Philly's Table, that my predecessor started, which I think is phenomenal. I also think that there's partnerships that we have with Cornell Cooperative. Cornell Cooperative has their facility at a county building right now.
And they bring the food trucks.
They do.
And the food trucks.
So do we have one of the freezers here?
And the freezers.
We haven't had a lot of them.
They have the freezers, they're in a lot of the senior
Senior
centers, and then
yes.
they're in Putnam, and they're in Putnam Valley Library.
Yes, there's several libraries in every town, I believe. But so we give a contribution to libraries. This last budget, I put in about $487,000 from the county budget to support libraries. The county legislature added to that, where it's about $505,000. So over $500,000 goes to the Mid-Hudson Library System, which is then based on formula given to the libraries. We also give over $300,000, close to $400,000 to Cornell. Cornell provides a lot of agricultural support, training, and education for the community, filling a role that the county would probably otherwise have to do on its own. They do great programs. And what I love is, look, they're not paying rent for where their facility is right now. So that's always, they never even had a lease. So we fixed that, our county attorney and our law department. We now have leases with every agency that uses a county facility. Just for liability purposes, for both parties, you should have a lease agreement. But Cornell is moving their facility to Tilly Foster Farm too,
Yes.
which is awesome. And now like that public park, it's a park. So yes, we have a restaurant, and they have concerts and stuff. But for me, I like, Governor Pataki was huge. He probably expanded parks more than any other governor in the state. Our park system should be looked at as parks. And Tilly Foster Farm is a beautiful space, but first and foremost, it is a park. And I want it to be family friendly, so children that go there to see the animals, or they want to go on a trail and hike, they should be able to do that. And I think having Cornell Cooperative there, BOCES there, and we're going to have the Youth Bureau there, kind of this feeds into the overall, feeling of what a park should be. So I'm excited about
Those
this.
food trucks and the freezers are some really good food.
Yes.
I'm saying, the food truck anybody can go to, you go to the freezer, if it's in the library, the age where the senior centers are there, but the variety, and it's all very fresh, and everything, and everything else, and the portion size, my husband says, in the summer, it's great, but it's a variety, so it's hoping something that they do continue, and stuff like that, and those women are so nice.
Well, that's some of the best feedback we get from our team at Office of Senior Resources is the food truck. So get that. And then I do get some seniors complain about V8 juice, and I'm sorry, I want you to live healthy, long, prosperous lives. So, and I might be a younger person, but I aim to be older. So.
No, it's every week on the truck is really something, very different, and in the freezers, there's always something different. Sometimes there's breakfast food, sometimes there's others, because I usually go to one of the seniors, so please, I hope it's something that will be able to be continued with all the cuts and everything, because many of us really like it.
It's one of those things in the annual report at Cornell. So outside agencies do an annual report too. So it's one of the things that's pretty conspicuous on their report.
I've written them too.
I always tell the agencies that ask for funding, if you don't give us a report, I'm not giving you any funding. So, yes, it's. So, what's your name?
Daniela.
Garrison.
And as you can tell, I am not a senior, but I am pretty technologically inclined. So as someone who looks out for seniors and other folks in my community, just at a very high level, and maybe you all know this already, what are some of the websites or resources that I should be pointing seniors to if they're hungry, if they're too hot, if they're too cold, where can you guide me?
Sure.
This is socializing.
Let's see if I can just do this right now.
And then trying to get them out of those isolated positions where they're always working, besides the library, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned the library, because it's an obvious one that sometimes we just forget. Like, and there are communities, you have a beautiful downtown in Cold Spring and Garrison. Not every community has that, right? So, like, where I grew up, I was in this, Bermuda's Triangle of Kent's, Carmel, Putt Valley. I was in Putnam Valley, Carmel schools. Putt Valley, I would go to their programming, that they had no central community. They didn't even have a high school when I was growing up. They had nothing. Everything was in Cortland. So the hub of Putnam Valley was the library. So so many gaps in services can be filled by the libraries. But so Putnam County and NY.gov is the county website. Obviously this is where you can go to look up me, and you can call our office, you can send us a message through here. What I did, this is a small thing I did for every department, it's good over our departments. The previous format of the website was just cluttered with banner ads for events and activities. I wanted to be as user-friendly as possible for people who need services to get them, but also I want you to know who's in charge of each department so we can all hold each other accountable. So I made sure that everyone got a headshot, their name, their title was on every department's page, which I thought was a normal thing with any business, any municipality. We didn't have that, but you can do that at other departments. The obvious one for seniors is you go to the Office of Senior Resources. Sometimes I find something missing here. This is a great way for me to catch up. So this is Marlena Barrett, our new All-Star Director of Senior Resources. She's someone we hired last year from within. She was a case manager, worked all the way up, became our deputy director, now our director. So they have information on some of the programs and services that they provide, specific to services on this website, and obviously we also have case managers that serve kind of as a ombudsman. So if you call and they need someone to help navigate seniors, we even have attorneys come in. I think it's Jim Meyer from Mayapack, who provides legal services to help them for things like will planning and things like that. We have case managers to help access them to services that they're eligible. A lot of these things may be means tested, so it's not something that everyone's acceptable to. Like, for example, HEAP is a federally funded program for those that are struggling for home energy costs, right? Whether it's heating oil or maybe air conditioning. Another program that we have, This Connects. This is a cool program that we highlighted earlier last year. It's an interesting partnership with our youth bureau, where we try to provide synergy opportunities where different departments work together. So it has our children from the youth bureau go into our senior centers and then try to educate some of our more elderly population on IT skills and how to connect to certain services. So you can learn more about that there. Other departments that overlap, and it's just the nature of the human services industry you're in, is social services and mental health. So if you go to departments, social service, mental health, and youth bureau, that's part of it. There's other services they provide that are, for example, Medicaid. So a lot of folks that are on Medicare and permanently disabled also benefit from Medicaid. Most folks that are permanently disabled benefit from Medicaid. And then there are those that are there for means-tested issues because of income or some other issue. So a lot of other services that come up, they also deal with, they deal with some of the most important work that we do in county government. Our Child Advocacy Center that care for children that are victims of various forms of abuse, things that none of us want to say out loud but need to be investigated. They care about, they do child protective services, adult protective services. That's all part of Department of Social Services, Mental Health, and Youth Bureau. So a lot of that can be right there on the website, and they have case managers.
Thank you.
Very well. It's a great question. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to bring it down to unless there's somebody else behind me.
I was just going to say, in Phillipstown, there's the Friendship Center in Cold Spring, which is the senior center, and Phillipstown Aging at Home does a lot of programming, including here at the library. They're here the first Thursday. Justice, is it the
first Thursday of every month?
Of every month.
We're taking a hiatus in August.
And we have that, my name is escaping me, new outreach, it took a while. Phillipstown did not have one for a while, but we did get someone for that position about a year or so ago. And that person helps. There's a pretty cool partnership they're working on. What's the drug world? Is that someone?
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because some of it's you get a prescription, but tracking, patient care, follow-up, and how can you work together with our team at Senior Resources, our nutritionists, and they do a lot of programs. Pretty fun.
Sorry, George.
So George, I was gonna fill that gap, but you seem to have taken care of it. Not gonna happen. I'm gonna change just to kind of library business.
Okay.
I want to thank you for coming. It's nice to see you in the flesh. I do watch your video every now and then, and I'm glad we agree on the importance of the libraries as institutions. This one in particular is a really healthy community center. It enriches the lives of children and the elderly, and working hard to get the teens in here too. We do realize an upside from the $500,000 from the county. It's a $15,000 contribution, but that's due to an algorithm we get into time. We also appreciate the $300,000 that goes to the Cornell Cooperative, which we take advantage of in partnerships across a number of things. We've built, providing services for Phillipstown and beyond is what we look at. We've built the managed grounds on our property here with walking path, 2 gardens, an innovation and learning center, which was mentioned earlier to fill one of the gaps you had mentioned in the public school system. It's famous for building new lines in this town. A nature play area, which just opened up. And as buildings age and climate and weather events stress the physical plant, our energy costs rise, but we continue to fix and rebuild. Out front, you can see a big hole, which is the outdoor pavilion, which was through communities' outreach told us they wanted outdoor space, but was then didn't provide it anywhere. So our library is going to provide it with our funds, not the funds provided by our tax dollars that we receive, but by partially by a little bit of an endowment, but we'll be fundraising for it as well. But we see it as a heavy need, but it's not coming from our budget. Costs for this project have increased 100% in 5 years since the beginning of COVID, that too. So libraries are under a lot of stress, our campus in particular. Our finances are public-private, what we do here. I think we receive 30% or 50% from tax dollars.
It's less than 50%?
Okay, less than 50, more than 30. The rest is from a well-managed endowment.
Is it a library district or is it with the school district?
Well, we are an association library.
Okay.
So one of the 4 types, but we do get taxpayer money from the
town.
Well, we do get money some money from the town of Phillipstown,
Okay.
but we get $300,000 from GUPS from the Garrison Unified School District because we went to taxpayers for that. But
Yes,
still,
we did.
even with all our public funding, that comes to about 42% of our budget is public funding, and then the rest is from our endowment.
Is
So we
it just
manage-
Garrison that goes into your budget? Or
Yes.
I was shocked when
Yes.
because I was shocked when I saw my list, Bill, and I actually from Phillipstown, mine goes to Butterfield.
Right.
Yes.
Just even though I'm a member of this one.
Correct.
But that's what's
Welcome.
Oh, I've been here, I've been.
It's the best thing about libraries.
No, this is the conundrum, and yes, this is only in the last few years.
And you guys were great during the pandemic.
Thank you for being here.
My grandchildren used to come on the property
Oh.
and run around because you would put out emails and stuff. People, please, just take your garbage with you. But I
Yeah.
mean,
We stayed
literally,
open.
they, the property, it was not shut up, obviously you couldn't go in, but they were encouraging families and stuff to picnic, and my grandchildren were young then, and they go, but family used to come and run around the property.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we have 11 acres.
No, I
which is
know,
also
but
a very,
Open
it's
space is
very,
great.
it's very beautiful.
So just my own personal anecdote. I went away with some family to Vermont for Independence Day weekend. It's one of the only holidays that I leave because most of the activities I find are like with fireworks. I'm like, I can't see it. So I'm gonna.
You were watching parades, so
I was with my son, my 5-year-old, in his grandfather's car being a parade in Castleton, Vermont. But they have a beautiful library. So after the parade, wherever we go, everyone goes to the library. And they had this beautiful grassy space where they had like all these activities and music. And it was awesome. But a lot of the library, I love my library. I live in Mayapack now. Awesome library, view of the lake. They don't have a lot of grass. Like the parking lot is always filled. So but some of them have it. Like Kent has a nice grass spot. So it is open, like outdoor space and open space is, I think, very important.
And now we'll have covered space.
If you could straight.
Down to the
Yeah.
ground. My point is, I love hearing everyone's experiences
But
with
this
libraries
particular
because
library is very much community, as I said, oriented, and it always has been, and stuff, but it's also convenient.
yeah.
Which is a big deal, you can drop your book off quickly, if you've got it, I mean, convenience, then it's critical. I mean, it's like, there's like so many community things that make it really, really convenient, and then obviously, during the pandemic times with justice and everybody, the books to the car, and everything else. Yes, and even when you had the pumpkin, you glow things during it, I've got pictures, we're all standing there with masks on, but you still didn't forget the children, through the whole thing. So I mean, it really is something for everybody. Even though I said I pay Butterfield, but I'm a member of this library. Well,
Thank you very much.
Both have
Hey,
different
hey,
things
no, I'm
going on.
around.
Is there a question?
Yes.
I'm going back and there's a nice dialogue. I appreciate it.
I
I just
obviously.
realized I'm
advocating is
Yeah, my presentation was too long. The pavilion we're putting outside, which will give a roof to the people outside, will also have a solar array, which we've been looking for many, many years, as well as car charging stations and a battery generator for the building, which it's never had one. So there's a lot of foresight into not just this library as a library that needs to last, but also as a facility that's an emergency facility. It falls under your guise as a stage something. It has a
Warming city, most all the libraries.
Oh, yeah, we're
have
cool,
cooling stations.
we're warming
Yeah.
As we could all feel.
But also for disaster relief.
and those kinds of things. So
And
we
you've got the
keep that in
fire.
mind as we present what we are to our community. My question to you is the best pockets of money that we can go to help maintain our physical plant, because programming and those kinds of things I think are a very different thing than where we may be fishing. Where does a library fall for grant opportunities that we may not be thinking we belong? Like, should we be in there with college at university? Where is the largest swimming pool and fishing school?
So
and we can take this offline.
Sure, actual swimming pools.
I can give you a little, we can talk a little more about it. I would say for county government, in my first budget, as an alternative to their share the growth of sales tax, I tried to create a municipal grant partnership program and one for community assistance. So either it was a nonprofit or association or municipal. It got cut from the budget by the legislature in favor of a property tax cut, which I embraced and accepted. And ultimately now we're sharing sales tax portion with municipalities directly, towns and villages, not special districts. That would just become even more, it would just dilute it to like where it was less effective. The county has traditionally supported outside agencies, organizations that are nonprofit or municipalities with a contract. So if they're providing a specific service that the county would otherwise provide, like a library, we enter into a contract and we get funded through the budget process. The reason why I did try to do the grant program instead was, in my experience, budgets are about priorities, but they're also inherently political. And I would like to get some of the politics out of the budget process and have it more aligned to a set form of criteria that can be objectively scored. I just think that's like a cleaner way to do things. I also have to be an adult and acknowledge that I can't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And every budget, particularly when you're talking about over $200 million, it's going to include compromise. So that grant program has not come back. It never was enacted. I did say that if the legislature would like to reconsider that and have a discussion in the future, I would be open to it, but I wasn't going to introduce it just for it to get slapped down again. So the county doesn't have that. The only mechanism we have to support agencies like a library is through budget requests. That's the only method that we have. Separately from the county, though, to your question, is the state does provide a significant amount where you can, the more traditional buckets of funding, library, construction aid or capital aid. Bullet aid is the best stuff because it basically just goes right into your formula aid, and it's like an increase of anywhere from I don't know what they're giving these. When I was in assembly, it was the first time the minority conference was able to get any bullet aid. I got like $13,000 and $20,000 for a couple libraries. But I just saw that Matt Slater got $20,000 for 3 different libraries. So that's amazing. I'm assuming Dana Levenberg, the assemblywoman for this area, got even more. She's the majority. But that's good because there's really no strings attached. You just get the money. Most state legislators, as a former state legislator, I would like to know where it was going before I would report it, so it wasn't going to be on something frivolous. So I was always pretty flexible about it, but what do you need it for? Very easy question that everyone should be able to answer. Those are the more traditional way funding opportunities.
So a budget request that would go to you, would that come through the local assembly person or the local senator? How would that budget request get to your desk?
To me, as county executive,
Yes.
it wouldn't be the senator or the assembly people.
Right.
That's for state money.
Right.
If they wanted funding from construction aid or bullet aid, you go to your assembly person center and you make that request, and that's state money. If you're looking, I mean, it's all taxpayer money, but where it's coming from is the state government. If you're looking for something from county government funding, from the county budget, that request comes in through our budget process. So right now, correspondence already went out. Yeah, the libraries already submitted it, so we're scheduling meetings to go through their request. Cornell Cooperative is an outside agency. What's another obvious one is legal aid, right? We contract out. So Cove Care is not really looked at as an outside agency, but they're a contract. They're all nonprofits that provide core services that the county government relies on them for, rather than the county government expanding a department. We've also, funded other agencies, nonprofits that provide essential services that the legislature and me as executive have acknowledged provide a core function. Notable for this area, Phillipstown Hub. So they got, I think it was $15,000 from our budget. They put in a request, and we had a meeting with them with other outside agencies. So
when did this happen, Dee Dee?
We submitted the county budget on, I think it was the 24th of June.
Okay.
So we did ask for a 2.5% increase for the 8 libraries within the county, which
I always say no comment in terms of October, because then everyone's gonna know I know what I'm putting in.
Yeah.
So, so what we typically do is our commissioner of finance and our finance team reaches out to those agencies that have been traditionally funded, and then we have an online platform set up, and we send it to the county legislature. So if there's other agencies that they believe provide a core function of government service that could be done in a contract as an outside agency, that they can submit a packet. I hate to use the word application because then people think it's a grant, and it really isn't like a grant in your traditional sense. It's a request for funding. And then we have to go, but in mine, and they have to have all their tax paperwork, all their board of directors, their minutes. And I have if you've been funded before, I expect there to be an annual report submitted like every other department and agency. If not, I'm going to disqualify you. I expect you to have an application that's complete. We'll work with you and help you, but that's one of the easiest ways we weed out those that either didn't need the funding or weren't using it. We had one agency did great work for years, but they were getting $30,000 a year for a contract for a product that we didn't get for 2 years. So, I cut it, the legislature added it and put it in a contingency account, so they never actually spent it, so we kind of recovered the money back, and now it's been zeroed out. So sometimes it's just like, you gotta show up.
Housekeeping.
Yeah, just show up, and I tell anyone that puts a request in,
30,000.
if you don't get the request that I want, if I don't put it in the budget, I'm only the beginning, right? You put the request at the administration, I put in the executive budget or the tentative budget, as our charter calls it. Then the legislature does their hearings, they amend it, they measure things up or down. Then it goes into their budget, and then I can approve or veto, and then they can override or not, and then that's the final budget. Does that help answer?
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
I mean, as
Finance,
you
a
mentioned,
finance department
Yeah.
does help me take in those
I
requests.
think the points that George is trying to make is that this library has so much going on
And so many,
on a
we
big
see,
scale.
yes,
Unusually, I
we
think
see our
more than the
responsibility
average.
as being quite grand because of the community we live in. It's so diverse and different.
Just that's the way I belong in here. I was sitting in the other day for the first time. The kids could have a field day in there.
Well, they do.
They do,
Oh,
my
yeah.
grandkids all the time.
It's
I'm in there.
So we just see our role, and we see ourselves as trailblazers, and yes, we live in a community that can be generous at times, but these are important institutions in this time, and I don't see significant help from our government interest in significant is the key word there.
Yeah.
So there's significant.
Yeah, I
There's
mean, I
money
don't,
for programming, things to add on and click on, but the idea of sustenance for ongoing and building, and really, I'm curious what you think. I mean, I know what you think of all the libraries.
well, libraries, so each is different. Like I would say too, libraries in most cases, many cases, they are their own government. They are government, like, right? So they can levy taxes. So they can go through, whether it's a school district or, like in the library district in Mayapack and Reed Memorial over in Carmel, they want more money, they can go and ask for money from the taxpayers just like every other, the state government, the county government. So like, there's a thought that's like, why are we getting revenue from multiple sources? Like they want more money, they can ask for more money. So I think what really makes libraries so unique is their flexibility to adapt. It's changed from the Dewey Decimal System and card catalogs, all this stuff from when I was a kid going to Putnam Valley, and it was like they had some like reading programs and stuff and things like that for young people. But Mayapack has a Lego club. I'm going in there, and it looks like it's so much more than just reading.
Yeah.
It is a whole and for people of every age. So there needs that flexibility. I think opens doors, for new funding opportunities.
It's interesting. I think you put your finger on it for us, which is we live in a community, Phillipstown, which is actually 5 communities, very different communities with 5 very different tax bases, and we provide service for all 5, and then some, significant and some. And so to go, that scenario scheme is what it's called. I love that scheme. That scheme of going back to the taxpayers for is hard for us, because we know the taxpayer base isn't what sits directly around us, it's the hinterlands.
Thank you.
I think one thing should be pointed out, though, is this library has a history of doing a lot of fundraising. They pointed out the ILC over here. We raised $169,000 for that, not a penny of government money. In the back, the Reading Garden, a donor gave us $100,000 for the Reading Garden, and then donated an additional $75,000 that would never cost the library for maintenance. We've raised now $44,000 for the nature play area that's going to come in, not a penny of government money. So we have a record of doing a good job with that. And when we need government money, we expect it to be there.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Frank.
We need it, yeah.
Thank you.
For real.
All right, that's it.
No.
Most of it.
Miss,
Yeah,
seems like
I just wanted to say the same thing. I think you're doing a great job what they're doing for the children and the seniors here. It's remarkable. We come from Long Island. We moved up here when we retired. They had nothing like this down there. Nothing. See, very little for the seniors. And, they did have a lot of programs for the children, but like between the rec center here, the camp in the summertime, I mean, it's amazing. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. And I will say you are in one of the most historic, beautiful areas in the country. And we have a lot of history here. It dates back to the American Revolution. And I'm very honored that we have our Governor George Pataki, co-chairing our Revolutionary Putnam County Committee with George Whipple. And a beautiful event over on Constitution Island. So whenever people ask me, I go to these like national conferences and they say, where's Putnam County? I used to always say like, we're an hour north of the city, between Connecticut and West Point. But really Constitution Island and the Great Chain is like one of the stories that most people recognize, and it is really impressive. So exciting stuff, but you're like at the heart of it. So can I ask you guys a question?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll get booed. If we're good with the names, that's still an issue or no?
Oh, that was resolved last year.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm fine with the name.
No, but again,
I'm good. I didn't know if that was like a thing. So like watch it like. Oh.
Well, understand we spent a year plus
Over here.
through a very arduous process, bringing in outsiders. Also, most importantly, having it out there to the community so they can just speak their mind. And like everything else in this world, it was so hair close in terms of the opinion that you just kind of have to go with the consent, the vote.
Yeah. Well, that's what we had to deal with was controversial name changes in school districts or from Mayapack, and I was like, I have my opinion as an individual. At the end of the day, I just don't like having it forced on communities. I'd rather have the community make the decision. So that's kind of where I've always landed on it. If the community wanted to change it, then that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna be like finger wagging to do it.
No.
Historic class.
Well, and we also
Yeah,
just were
it's all selected.
very transparent about the process and had community members. And
Yeah,
it was like,
yeah.
when people who weren't happy with the outcome,
It was
they
really
couldn't
deliberate.
fault the process, so they
Good.
were happy that we had that discussion.
Well, it's a
Transparency.
Beautiful library,
Thank
and
you.
I
Yes.
really appreciate you having me here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you've been
Thank
so
you.
patient, quiet, you get no
Well,
questions.
I'm taking it all in, but thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for coming over though, because,
Yeah.
you know, you didn't have to do this. And it's great, you do this in every single library.
We're trying, we gotta get a picture of the map. So this was Dave Pascacello's idea. because
Yeah,
we've
it's
done,
a very nice
for
idea.
the
Yeah.
Hudson road trip.
Well,
Yeah.
definitely, so.
we got all the passport thing, the map.
Yes.
So we're doing every library.
We have a wonderful board, and more members would be, I'm sure, if they could, but, you know, we'll report back that this is a good discussion.
Yeah.
We appreciate your,
Well, for me, half of it is
Support.
just showing up.
Yeah.
And then people really can come. And no matter what time we pick, there's always a challenge. I do it in the morning, and then people do shift work, they can't make it, I do it in the afternoon. Yeah, so we try to change it up a little bit, and I don't just do it one and done. We've done the traditional town hall style forums and go to actual town hall. I honestly find this a lot more effective.
yeah.
So,
Okay, well,
Thank you for
Well, I'm a nurse, and the doctor used to come to do presentation, and if they brought lunch, everybody showed up.
that's true. I am pretty fiscally conservative and frugal, so.
Really?
We do, I've done that too, we've done coffee,
Yeah.
county executive, we do a little